Mr. President, I want to thank the Minister for his presentation. And just this morning, I was actually on a radio interview with Senator Samuda. And I made the point that there is always going to be a debate, especially coming up to... No, he came on. Nah. There's always going to be a debate about who initiated and who implemented. You were having some conversations just this morning. And he gave me some body blows, I must admit. But I tried my best to give him some as well. But implement and initiate are always going to be conversations. And I'm proud to say I was in the Ministry of Tourism at the time that this was initiated. And I see some members of staff present. And I remember how enthusiastic they were at the time. I also must say a special thank you to Mrs. Daisy Cook, who was very committed from that time. And I was looking for Senator Graham, because in the Bible, there's a often repeated statement from the Bible that says that there are 90 and 9. But they don't often speak to the part that says very few knew how dark was the night. And very few knew when we were very few knew when we were meeting with a lot of the Sergeant Corps and the Guardian Lives, when they're explaining the difference between ARS and independent and the cost of the independent. And there are some things that we were lobbying for at the time that I'm not seeing present that I would want. I was present. I was a junior minister at the time. Wickham McNeil was the minister at the time. And I learned quite a lot from persons like Mrs. Cook about not allowing for example, independent, because it would dwindle down the money with the cost of running the independent account versus a joint, and how would we do it, etc. But there were some things we were lobbying for at the time that I'd like to speak to now to see if it's possible for consideration, and if possible, if it can be implemented. Now, tourism is defined simply as the travel and stay of people outside of their home destination. And that includes even domestic persons, because it is 50 kilometers each way. So a person coming from Kingston is actually in Montego Bay a tourist. We call him a domestic tourist. We often don't count it, but that person is indeed a tourist. Well, it depends. If you come from Montego to Kingston, you might be equally. But within it, there are certain characteristics of a tourism which are matching certain characteristics of services that cause for the worker, the employee, to be of great importance. One such characteristic is what we call inseparability, the simple reality that the worker must be present for the product to be consumed. It's not the same for a manufacturer, for example, where the product is made before the consumption. So there is simultaneous production and consumption, which has called for many academics to just a little bit, just for you to understand. So many academics say that the moment of truth exists when the employee interacts with the visitor, right? And that moment of truth is important because when we interact with the Grace Kennedy product, the person that did the work, the employee, isn't automatically present. Generally services, yes. So tourism as a service also goes through that inseparability, or what you call simultaneous production and consumption. I'm making that point because I'm trying to come to what the importance of the employee is. Now, there's also another concept that we call the satisfier and hygiene factor, called the two-factor theory. And in that, it says that what is the number one satisfier of a visitor to a destination? And that is not the infrastructure, because the infrastructure has become expected. A hygiene factor is that which, when it is in existence, it don't satisfy you, but in its absence, it dissatisfies you. So a nice room in its existence is supposed to be nice. All hotels have nice rooms in the mind of the consumer. But if you don't have a nice room, you're vexed about it. But you're not satisfied. The opposite of satisfaction in this case is not dissatisfaction. It's simply not satisfied. And then there's satisfiers, which we find in the interaction with the guests, with the staff. So 45% of the people returning to Jamaica is because of the human interaction, not because of the hotel room that exists in almost every destination. is because of the human interaction, not because of the weather patterns which exist in every we call it that type of climate, tropical climate. It exists in every tropical climate. So therefore, there is a importance of the worker that I don't see being captured sufficiently in this particular bill. Because when we were discussing it, we wanted a % of the TF contribution to continuously be sent to the fund. So therefore, we have a pension fund that we're putting $1 billion up front, and that is great. That's to be applauded. That was always something that we were pushing for. But also, each year, we are saying because of the importance of the person to the product, that the funds coming through tourism enhancement, that a % of each year's collection should go to the pension fund. And, sorry? And I'll agree. We will push for the conservation trust too, because the environment is what we sell. There are other peoples, there are other countries that sell their history. There are other countries that sell their architecture. We sell our environment. So therefore, the importance of the environment will qualify. Yeah. We were pushing for that as well. Right. So therefore, I'm saying, and I'm going to tell you why I'm saying this too. The low level of wages that most hotel workers experience, the low level of wages, will cause for the pension in and of itself to be an almost immaterial sum if there is no supplementation from some source. The fact also that many are currently almost at pension age. And we see nothing, we were lobbying at that time for a special consideration for those over 45. That a lump sum would have gone into it if you were in the industry for more than 10 years. That a lump sum would have put in place so that whatever you were able to save in the next 20 years would have been sufficient. Because there is a necessity of materiality. Is that a word in my economics? That it must be sufficient.
The English language is dynamic.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to be incorrect in my economics. But the amount that you are receiving, if it is not material, then it is almost as equal to zero. So we were lobbying and we were wondering if consideration can be made, first of all, for a continued contribution of X%. In the time that we were there, we were saying 3% would have continued to go to the pension fund because of the importance of the worker and because of the reality that their salaries in the main are so low that it would have been a buttress of the workers' income. The second point is that many that committed their lives to tourism for a long time, unfortunately, didn't benefit from the foresight of this pension scheme. And so those who are there for more than 10 years and over 45, could there be a lump sum to ensure that they have a functional minimum? The actuaries would advise if that what would have to come in and how we'd have to invest it. But you're going to have some people with only 10 years to go, but she was a housekeeper for 40 years. You're going to have some people with only 5 years to go. What she will eventually get, right?
Yeah.
Might
so
not be.
You're talking about some retroactive payments.
So that they now I know that there's an amount to say 16,000. That there's a a lump sum from the TF.
That's right.
Yeah, you would seed a special seed fund. No, what the billion is, the billion does for the person who's 45 is to present a circumstance that the 200,000 net present value is almost 30,000. So to get 30,000 a year, where's not even part, which is $20 a day. So what we're trying to do is to say, based on this age group for the next 20 years, what is a livable amount? And how, no, I'm not saying Afina. All I'm saying is these were things we were pushing for, but we never have total knowledge, and we never have full time. So now that you have had full time, I'm assuming you'd have then now got more knowledge. And with that more knowledge, maybe it is possible or proven impossible. But we're right. Well, you see, you always cover your thing as a working man. The other thing is, so that tourism is known to have contract workers. And some of the times that type of contract work is necessary in Jamaica's situation because of the seasonality of services. So therefore, you're going to find between November 15, April 15, that the hotel needs more workers. And therefore, how are we going to deal with the person? I've not seen that captured, that how we deal with the person who is by nature of the business having to be on contract. Well, if it is dealt with, I've not seen it. Please, if it is dealt with, correct me. But that seasonal worker will definitely not be able to acquire a, what would you call, a material sum for pension. Right. And so therefore, not being able to acquire a material sum, should that person be able to withdraw his sum? Because over the 4-month period per year, he will not. Now, there are many Jamaicans that come into our hotels and work and then go overseas and work and then try to come back into our hotel and work. How would we do that? I didn't see that captured sufficiently in my opinion, but if I'm incorrect, it can be corrected. The other thing is that the salary isn't certain, because in this it says all remuneration, which means that gratuity will be a part of it as well. And if that is the case, then there are going to be months that the thing is up, and there are going to be months that the thing is down. Now, how do you ensure that this is not being manipulated by management in sending a sum not reflected directly in what my salary is each month? Because I first of all, the employee must of what was sent. All right. So I'm asking Minister and team, the 5% coming from the employer, does that also include the total remuneration? For example, the employee should put 5% of total remuneration, including base salary and gratuity. The 5% coming from the employer, is that only base salary, or is that also 5% of the total? That wasn't clear to me. That wasn't, I don't know if you understand what I'm saying, Minister. Because an employer could claim that the gratuity is a tip coming from the guest, and therefore his responsibility is the agreed salary. That must be clear, because cost saving is almost the automatic basis of these employees, businesses. We also have to look at the reality that, no, well, again, if it is in there, I stand corrected. From reading, I didn't see clear what the 5%. Okay, thank you very much. We also have to look at the further reality that there's also a new thing of outsourcing employee, HR, in particular hiring. So the outsourcing that is taking place, who is to be held responsible directly for saying that you're responsible for the contribution? Who is to be responsible? So let us say that Hotel A outsourced their employment activities to me. Who is then responsible? The entity or me? And being that I am producing workers, even though I'm producing to a hotel, do I automatically qualify as a hotel entity, as a tourism entity? I'm not sure if everybody's understanding what I'm saying. There are persons who are now providing labor for hotels. Now that person wouldn't, under current designation, be a tourism entity. Because let's say Manpower, for example. Manpower may produce, maybe given a contract for as a company, Manpower, for housekeeping staff and for maintenance staff. Now, if manpower is providing these persons, is the hotel still the person responsible? Or can manpower claim that they are not a tourism entity and by extension don't have to pay this pension? Even though the majority of the workers are employed within the tourism entity. How do you deal with the third-party contractor who is actually now seeking to avoid this 5% at least? We need to see that somewhere in there. I also don't see, Mr. President, we were lobbying at the time for a consideration of lump sum removals for activities like starting a business, or a lump sum removal for activities like buying a home. Minister, I hear you spoke to the fact that there's another thing many don't know the dark of the night about housing. And I must say, current minister, Bartlett, Uncle Bartlett, has been very committed to tourism housing for a very long time. Yes, but he has been committed. He spoke of it in the 07 period. We came over, we took it on and was pushing it, and he continues to push it. I give him great kudos for that, great credit for that. Minister Bartlett, I give Minister Bartlett for commitment to housing for the hotel workers. Great commitment, right? And that is a necessary commitment, because relativity is a means of anger. When you go to a hotel with all of the beautiful rooms and the nice bathroom and the pool, and then you go home to a shack, you're so disappointed with life, with yourself, with your circumstance, that you're inclined to do all kind of negativity, demotivated and everything. So I applaud him. But if a person is to get this house now, and him have a lump sum of money there, shouldn't he be able to apply for a percent, if that could carry him over the threshold to have a down payment? But well, what I have before me now is the pension bill. And so, my brother, we have in front of us this pension bill. I'm using housing as an example, but what if I want to start a business? Shouldn't I be able to say, there's a percent, 20, 30, that I can touch? If not, you can, because let me make, and I hear some people saying maybe not, but let me explain something about pension. The pension assumes that at the point of pension you have no more rent. Meaning it's normal that your mortgage ends at your pension age. So when you actually own a home, that expense is removed. And so you don't need, now the average Jamaican don't have housing expenses removed because he was paying rent. And continues to pay rent, even in his pension. And therefore I'm saying that if it is that a person can move to ownership by taking a percent of the lump sum before time, it helps him in the pension because his cost is reduced, his living expense is reduced. These are things where we're thinking all round the box, above the box, outside the box. No box. Yeah, we say new fresh minds, new ideas. Fresh minds, new ideas. The other thing, Mr. President, is that we want to understand how it is that a person applies a private tourism entity. But I see no basis for appeal. So therefore, the board will receive the application. But there's nowhere in this that I see that there may be an appeal if the board don't accept my application. So if I say that I'm a tourism entity and the board says no, do I appeal to the minister? Who do I appeal to? And I want that appeal because we know that pension in Jamaica is a problem. Therefore, we should be very facilitatory of anybody who wants to be in a pension. Outside of the government entities, almost 80% of Jamaicans don't have a pension. So therefore, if a man says, I want to be in a pension, and there's a blockade to him based upon some understanding of the rules, him should have an ability to appeal. And I don't see that ability to appeal. I'm finally asking for a broadening of what is considered a tourism worker. In the measurement of tourism contribution, you have a thing called a satellite account, a tourism satellite account, which don't only measure indirect but measures indirect. In the same way, you have direct and indirect employees of tourism that this currently don't consider the indirect. For example, a man who farms only for sandals, is he a tourism employee? Like 98% of my goods are sold to hotels. Are my workers tourism employees? There needs to be, again, because of the negative of the majority of Jamaicans not being in a pension, that we should seek to facilitate as much as we can. So, for example, the craft vendor is a tourism employee. Is the craft maker a tourism employee? Because they're not always the same. In fact, most times they're not the same. You go down to the craft market, you see somebody only have a sandal something where somebody else make. Sometime in China, unfortunately, but sometime in Jamaica. So therefore, is the craft maker qualified to be a tourism employee? All of that have to now be considered in the thing. So if more than 60% of your goods, I'm suggesting, are consumed by the hotel industry. In fact, there is something that the Exim Bank currently has for qualification for the tourism borrowing that may be applied to and I see the staff over there, they're agreeing right now. And I see currency looking like she agreed with me right now. She just impressed with me right now. That's right. But yeah, I'll take it for myself. But can it be expanded using a similar definition of X% being within the tourism industry for the person to be qualified? Because again, we are in a situation where many persons, everybody that have been in an MP office knows of the elderly coming. Anybody that have been a candidate know of the elderly coming for as little bit as just protein. And so therefore, if there's a way to capture more, I would love if we can consider that way to capture more. So therefore, I congratulate the Ministry of Tourism. I congratulate definitely the rafters in Rio Grande, the rafters generally, and it's within the same point. The craft vendors, the craft makers, the persons who benefit from tourism in the main for their existence and income, they should be considered to be a part of this scheme. So we feel. I want to congratulate one of my mentors, Wickham McNeil, for his foresight and vision. I want to congratulate as well Minister Bartlett for his commitment to workers and his commitment to tourism. I could never, outside of government, Minister Bartlett have remained committed to tourism. I remember as minister seeing him overseas. And I didn't know what to do. It's the first time I go foreign. And he took me under his arms. He introduced me to everybody. I laud him. Ed Bartlett. I laud him for what he has done. I campaign against him all the time, but I still laud him for what he has done. And also, I want to congratulate the team from the TEF, the team from the Ministry of Tourism. And I want to just put in as well a congratulations, just separate and apart, to Jampro. I went to Trinidad with Jampro recently. It was one of the greatest experiences that I have had. They are very committed in the field, and entities, I couldn't report it. I've already gotten into trouble. But entities like Jampro, the ministry, TEF, JTB, we don't give them enough congratulations for the effort that they have. So therefore, I applaud this, Mrs. Cook. I thank you for being committed and remaining committed. But some of the things that we were lobbying for, I hope some can be considered in this bill. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.